right. Let's get to some headlines from across the state of Texas. We are going to start in the college ranks, and we're going to start with a pretty sizable transfer in the college football ranks, and that is that SMU is getting a new running back. Now, you may remember a few weeks back when I would say rather late and rather shockingly is probably not the word, but surprisingly, SMU lost their leading rusher in Ulysses Bentley. Ulysses Bentley went into the transfer portal. So they were down a running back. They were not going to be – they were going to field the team. They were going to have a running back. They had Trey Siggers. They had Tyler Levine. But Ulysses Bentley, I think, was pretty clearly their best option at running back. He transfers. Well, now they have brought in a transfer from Alabama, and it's a local kid coming home. Former Lakeview Centennial 5-star running back Kamar Wheaton, who was the third-ranked running back in the class of 2021, is transferring to SMU. He redshirted at Alabama in 2021, which means that he's still got 4 years of eligibility there at SMU. This is a huge, huge addition to them.
Yeah.
He's a big play running back. He was a splashy guy when he was at Lakeview Centennial.
Yeah, that's one we looked at and we're like, yeah, they'll be just fine.
And that's the thing. So you think about what Ulysses Bentley was compared to Trey Siggers and Tyler Levine. I like Trey Siggers and Tyler Levine.
Yes.
They are more bruisers.
Yes.
They are a little bit more lower the shoulder, get the tough yards guy. They are not – they have some explosiveness to them, but that's not really their forte. Their forte is getting the tough yards. They didn't – so by losing Ulysses Bentley, they had lost their big play threat in the running game. I would say they picked it up.
Yes,
in
absolutely.
Kamar Wheaton.
And he's a guy, too, that'll be able to come in and make, like, immediate impact.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to give him a year to warm up or something like that.
Correct. So I think this is a huge, huge get for SMU. Really changes what that offense is going to look like in the first year under Coach Rhett Lashley. So that is huge, huge there for SMU. Another thing I want to point you out to, a couple things on TexasFootball.com I want to point you out to. One is if you're not subscribed to Republic of Football, what the heck you doing?
Yeah, you should do that.
Republic of Football is great, and the most recent one is kind of a UTEP episode.
Yep.
Craven was out in El Paso, and he sat down with Dana Dimmel, the head coach there at UTEP, and had a great conversation with him. So make sure you go and listen to Republic of Football with Mike Craven, with Ishmael Johnson, and with Mallory Hartley. It is an excellent podcast that I am giving the official Texas Football Today stamp of approval. Congratulations.
2 thumbs up.
Congratulations, Republic of Football.
Great job, guys.
Well done.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Good job.
Well done. We clap. Yes.
Another thing I want to draw you to on TexasFootball.com is a piece from our friend Corey Hogue. And I think when we think about the transfer portal, we think about it in a very specific way. We think about what happened with Kamar Wheaton that we just talked about. Kamar Wheaton goes from Alabama to SMU. Quinn Ewers goes from Ohio State to Texas, right? Brandon Campbell goes from USC to where do you end up? North Texas.
Gosh.
No. UTSA.
There we go.
Right? Those types of transfers are the ones that we think about.
Yes.
I want to draw your attention to what's going on in another level of it, which is folks who are transferring from FBS teams to FCS teams. And this is another thing that I think is very interesting. We saw this coming with the COVID waiver for 2020, as well as with the transfer portal. We ran through it on Math Tuesday last week about how I said we framed it as it's getting harder to get recruited.
Right.
Another way to put it is that FBS teams are taking fewer kids.
Yes.
But what's happening is that the number of FBS caliber kids is not dropping. If anything, it's probably going up.
Yeah.
Right? Probably going up. But what's going to happen is there's going to be that trickle down. And that there's going to be some kids who should be Power 5, they're going to end up in Group of 5. There are going to be some kids that end up in FBS or that end up in FCS that should be FBS. And there's going to be a trickle down, and I think that what you're going to see is a quality of play all the way down. There's going to be D3 kids who should be D2 kids.
Yes.
You know? And so Corey Hogue's got a great piece up on TexasFootball.com talking about the transfer portal and how you are seeing, I believe now, 11 Texas FCS schools have added 11 former Power 5 players this year. For example, Lindsey Scott. Lindsey Scott has added from Nichols is going to Incarnate Word. B.J. Foster. B.J. Foster, of course, was a star there at Texas. He is now heading to Sam Houston, right? That type of transfer is also happening. We probably don't pay enough attention to it, but there is this trickle-down effect of players who are entering the transfer portal and saying, you know what? I'm going to go play at the FCS level. So you're going to see names that maybe you recognize from big-time Power 5 programs that are now going to end up there at that are going to end up elsewhere. So especially the FCS level. So keep an eye on that one. It's a great piece up on TexasFootball.com from Corey Hogue. To the high school ranks we go, Pickle. You may remember last Monday we had the, I suppose, breaking news at that point.
Yeah.
That Rodney Webb was retiring from coaching at Denton Guyer, leaving Denton Guyer open. We had speculated. We would say it was informed speculation that we knew he might be headed to some sort of administrative role. Thank you. We now know that he is the new athletic director at Highland Park.
May have heard of it.
Johnny Ringo retired there at Highland Park. Rodney Webb going to be the new AD at Highland Park. Now, something to keep in mind, which I think is interesting. And certainly, I hope he coaches forever. But Randy Allen is a veteran, let's say. He's a veteran.
He's a man that has left and come back before.
Correct. He is, he's shown at one point
interest in retirement.
Exactly. Interest in retirement. I'm not blowing smoke here. I don't have any inside information.
No.
I don't know if Randy Allen's retiring. I don't know. I don't know when he's retiring. He may never retire.
I'm not leaving.
But now, probably the most notable thing about Rodney Webb is that he will theoretically be in charge
of making the next hire.
At Highland Park. So, big shoes to fill.
And that's something that has not been done in a hot minute.
Done since in a while. So, keep an eye on that one. But Rodney Webb is the new athletic director at Highland Park. Corsicana's made a hire. Corsicana, you may remember, Hal Wasson retired after a legendary career. He retired there after 2021 season. They have hired Eric Sardinia. Eric Sardinia, the A-Leaf Elsick head coach, to be the next head coach at Corsicana. Eric Sardinia was a one-time coach at Dangerfield, bounced around a little bit. Now that he's coming from A-Leaf Elsick to Corsicana. So they have made their hire for the Tigers. Out west, Ballinger has made a hire. You remember the weird thing we talked about with Decatur? So Decatur, before the 2021 season, they, if I may editorialize, they railroaded Mike Fuller, the guy who took over in the interim capacity, who had nothing to do with it. I'm not certainly, but they needed an interim coach. The interim coach they hired was Ty Lang. Ty Lang, he took over. He was the interim coach for Decatur in 2021. He now has a permanent job. He is the new head coach there at Ballinger. Remember, Decatur hired from Steve Huff from College Station.
Yes. Which is still just weird.
So Ty Lang is now going to move from his interim position at Decatur over to be the new head coach of the Ballinger Bearcats. Chuck Lipsy is out there at Ballinger, so they have a new head coach. And finally, the last one I want to bring up is that Fort Bend Willow Ridge. Fort Bend Willow Ridge has made a hire. We probably at least mentioned it here on the headlines. But Ramon Chinyoung was the gentleman who confused me very much as to why he was going to the Denver Broncos. But he is going to the Denver Broncos. They need a new head coach. They've hired Fort Bend Hightower assistant head coach Kendron Penson to be their new head coach. Of note, this is the second Hightower assistant to get a head coaching job. Will Blaylock was an assistant coach there at Hightower, goes to become the head coach at Lubbock Estacado.
Not surprising.
So Hightower starting to pump out a number of head coaches. The latest one, Kendron Penson, the new head coach there at Fort Bend Willow Ridge, moving from his assistant head coaching position there at Hightower. Those are some headlines from across the state. We, of course, have you covered at TexasFootball.com for all things off-season football news in the state of Texas.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.